right, we are getting ready to make pizza crust, a keto-friendly pizza crust. Now this crust is still gonna have 12 net carbs, so it's not like having a crustless pizza, but I think maybe 12 net carbs is what was in the cauliflower pizza that we made once.
I don't recall, but if this turns out well, it may be worth those extra few carbs.
Right. So the very first thing that we're going to do, and this may seem like it's not keto, but it's necessary and it's incorporated into the total carbs, is we're actually going to use yeast, which is usually not something that people use in keto, and we are using real sugar.
Oh my God.
The reason why we're using real sugar is because yeast has to have something to eat in order to activate. And everything I've read, the Swerve, the fake stuff doesn't work. Now, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. We're just going to use a very small amount of sugar. So it's just going to be 1/4 teaspoon. Some people say that it'll all get eaten up and you don't count the carbs, but I actually counted the carbs in the recipe just in case. So I'm going to put that in there, and then we're going to use 2 teaspoons of yeast. This is Amish, from the Amish, and we keep it in the refrigerator. I'm going to put 2 teaspoons in there. So the temperature of the water needs to be, it needs to be about 110, but this should be a little bit hotter than that because the yeast is coming right from the fridge. If it's not, we'll turn it back. We'll turn it up a little bit. So yeah, we're at about 115 or so. So I'm gonna put 1/2 cup of water. This is 1/4 cup right here. Make sure I got that right. So there's 1. And there's 2. And now we're just going to stir that up a little bit, get that sugar mixed in, and then just let it sit here for about 5 minutes. And if we don't see it foaming, then it's not working.
Ah, good tip.
Okay, we're gonna put together all of the dry ingredients, and there's a wide variety here of things that we're gonna use. So first thing is oat fiber. We're gonna use 1/4 cup of oat fiber. There you go, 1/4 cup. And oat fiber is not carb heavy. I think it has very few net carbs. And then we're also going to want to use some xanthan gum, and that's going to be 1/4 teaspoon. We're just making 1 pizza crust here. Probably what's going to add the most flavor is going to be this Vital wheat gluten to make it. Now you see wheat and you immediately think very high carb, but what it is, and I am not going to try to get technical about it, but basically they remove everything but the protein. So this is a little bit of carbs and a lot of protein. Okay. So we're going to also use 1/4 cup of Vital wheat gluten. Now you can use 1/2 cup and remove the almond flour that I'm going to put in, but with 1/2 cup, it makes it really, really high in protein, the crust. And with all the toppings we're putting on and our lunch, it would go way over protein limit for the day. So I decided to do 1/2 and 1/2. So I'm doing 1/2 cup of almond flour, which also has, this is super fine almond flour, by the way. And, you know, almonds, obviously, it does have protein, but not nearly as much as that. So I just used 1/3. I just didn't even realize that I just used 1/3. So now we're using 1/3 cup of almond flour. It's supposed to be 1/4 cup.
Okay.
All right. And then a tablespoon of the powdered Swerve. I know that seems strange, but what we're gonna do.
1 tablespoon?
1 tablespoon.
Okay.
Then another flavoring that we're gonna add is nutritional yeast. And this is fortified nutritional yeast. I guess there's a difference, but I don't exactly know what it is. Again, low net carbs. And we're just gonna use 1 tablespoon of this. Having a heck of a time getting these little packages open here. Okay, so this is what nutritional yeast looks like. It has a almost like a cheesy, nutty smell to it.
Yeah, it does. It smells good.
Yeah, it smells really good.
I don't like that they're teasing us with popcorn on the front of that bag and mac and cheese.
And then we're gonna add 1/4 of a teaspoon of baking powder. That's gonna help with the rise along with the yeast. And the last ingredient for the dry is flaxseed meal, which actually just took flax seeds last night, put it in the magic bullet and made my own flaxseed meal. And you are gonna use 1/3 of a cup of this. And we can go ahead and put in the spices, I guess, the seasonings. I'm gonna use probably about, I don't like oregano much, so 1/8 of a teaspoon. About 1/4 teaspoon of the basil. If you have Italian seasoning, you can use that instead. And then I'm gonna use, this is a garlic salt. I'm gonna put in, there's 1/4, I might leave it at 1/4. Okay, that's all of the dry ingredients. Mix them up a little bit here. Okay, so we're putting the dry ingredients into my KitchenAid mixer. If you don't have a pizza hook for a KitchenAid mixer, you can mix this by hand or knead it by hand, but it'll be about 10 minutes at least of kneading. This makes it easier. You turn it on, you walk away, and it only takes about 5 or 6 minutes.
Awesome.
So, all right, you can see how the yeast has risen really well, bubbled up. It's gonna make a good rise, hopefully. It's still probably not gonna rise as much as normal pizza dough would, but it'll be pretty good. And then 1 tablespoon of olive oil. So you also need to add some salt, but we're not going to add the salt until it's done kneading. All right, we're going to turn this thing on and mix it up, and then once it's fully incorporated, then we're going to turn it up to about 2, and then we'll let it go for about 5 minutes.
Okay.
So I decided to go ahead and add a little bit more water. This is an experiment, so I wasn't sure exactly how much water to add, but it's not incorporating. So I'm gonna add like a tablespoon at a time. So, and we'll see what happens here with this. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and add that last tablespoon. So it's a total of 10 tablespoons.
We discovered that the dough hook for the KitchenAid was not picking it up because there just isn't a whole lot of mixture there.
Right, so the recipe called for 2 pizza doughs, but we're heading out of town, so we wouldn't be eating 2 pizza doughs. And I think I might have added too much water. So maybe stick with that 9 tablespoons of water. We'll see if it gets any better as we knead it. So because I'm having to hand knead it, I'm going to be kneading it for a good 10 minutes. Okay, so this is not exactly working the way that I had hoped. We did have to add a tablespoon of flaxseed meal. We might add another one. It is just, I mean, it is very, very sticky. I mean, it's like super glue sticky. Okay, you can see we added a tablespoon of wheat gluten, and that made all of the difference. It is really starting to come together. Now I can knead it. I'm gonna wash my hands, get all these little bits and pieces out, but definitely can knead it like regular pizza dough at this point. Okay, we ended up adding 1 more tablespoon of the wheat gluten, and now we're going to add 1/4 teaspoon of salt to salt it up. You can see it's got a pretty good texture now.
And smells
It
fantastic.
smells really good.
It smells just like pizza dough.
All right, finished pizza dough. We ended up kneading it about 15 minutes or so, something like that, because we had to stop a couple times and add things, but it's got a really good feel to it. It feels very much like pizza dough. So we're gonna take a little olive oil spray this right here, put it in there, spray the top, and then we're gonna let it rise somewhere probably around 45 minutes or to an hour. Just depends on how warm your house is. Ours is cold, so it's gonna probably take at least an hour. So,
I'm hungry, so I might turn the heat up.
so we will get back when this is finished. Okay, this is our pizza dough after it has risen for about an hour. And one thing I'll point out about this is it's not made with any eggs or cheese, which is often, or cauliflower, which is often a staple ingredient in pizza dough, which also makes this vegan crust.
Wow.
So for all my vegan friends out there, you can top this with some sauce, some veggies, and still be keto. So I wanted to weigh this, so I'm punching this down, getting it back into a dough ball shape here. And then I wanted to weigh it just to make sure I know for calculations how much dough there is. Okay, so 11 ounces of dough. So now this is gonna go back in here, and I'm actually gonna then just put this in the refrigerator because we're not eating this for a few hours, and because if you let it rise again in the fridge, it won't fully rise, but if you let it kind of chill out in the fridge, it's actually going to just taste better. The only thing that you want to make sure is that you get it out about an hour before you actually want to bake it, so it can go back up to room temperature.
Cool.
Okay.
All right.
So we'll see you pizza dough when it's time to eat pizza.
Wait.